Okay, so welcome back to the Movie Well Marathon. I'm Andrew,
And I'm Mac.
and we are on the Dark Crystal. We're continuing our
The Dark Crystal.
obscure fantasy movie marathon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is easily the most bizarre thing ever made by the guy who made the Muppets and the guy who made Sesame Street, so you know.
Uh-huh. Yep, I had never seen this until today, so this was an experience. Um,
And I honestly don't know if I ever really consciously watched this before, because I definitely saw it a couple times as a kid, but I don't know that I ever really understood what was happening. It just lives in the back of my mind as like one of those things that you saw
mhm.
as a kid. So
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting conversation, having never seen it as a kid and watched it now as a full-blown
hmm
adult. But yes, as you mentioned, directed by Jim Henson and Frank Oz, came out December 17th, 1982. Starring, let's see, do I recognize any of these people? Okay, well, yeah, Jim Henson and Frank Oz, they're in there. Um,
hmm
Dave Goals as the General, and Fizzgig, the little fluffy dog. We've got none of these people are in order. We got Billy Whitelaw, Joseph O'Connor, Catherine Mullen as Kira, Barry Dennen as Chamberlain. Where is our Jen? Can't find who plays Jen.
I
Oh,
don't
there
know.
he is. Oh, it's Jim Henson. Um, I don't know if he voices. Oh no, there's Stephen Garlick, I believe, is the voice of Jen.
Jen,
Cool beans. So
Jim, Jen,
yeah.
Jim.
hmm
That feels a little
I think they're being
okay.
credited as the puppeteers as well as there's like
Okay.
there's voice
hmm
actors and puppeteers. So yeah, Dark Crystal.
hmm
Uh-huh.
there's, I mean, I don't know. Knowing some interesting facts about this, I like to look these up on like Wikipedia. That's pretty much where I get all my information, guys. 'Cause, trust
hmm
Wikipedia.
hmm
Anyway, um, I guess one of the main intentions of like when writing this story was to get back to the darkness of the original Grimm's fairy tales, at least in part because he believed that children who were never scared were not healthy children, which
Oh
is an
my
interesting
god.
mentality. And it sounds really dark, but if you think about it, I think I
I mean,
agree. Kids who never experience fear
I
don't really develop properly.
I can get behind that. It's one of those things I feel like you don't say out loud, but that's understood. I feel like walking away from this though, at least me personally, the thing I found the most terrifying, I don't think you're supposed to find scary.
Okay.
I mean, because I mean I don't know what they're called, the bad vulture people, the
I
Sekis,
wrote these down.
the Seki,
Skeksis? Skeksis? Something
Skeksis,
like that?
yeah, the Skeksis. They're ugly and they're gross, but I don't
hmm
find them nearly
hmm
as uncomfortable and uncanny as Jen's and Kira's faces, because they're way freaking. Oh,
Really?
I hate their faces. I've seen images of this movie. I think it got real
hmm
popular on the internet a couple of years ago for some reason. I don't remember why. I don't
hmm
even know what the
They did
trend
like a
was.
sequel or something.
Oh yeah, that's probably what it was. And I just saw their faces and I was like, these weird deer people are ugly. I don't like them. It's weird. Um, but anyway,
I don't mind their designs, the
I
Gelfling designs. They're just like
hate them.
sort of basic humanoids with
Well,
less defining
I
features.
have a bigger point, which
Mm.
this, so I'm not gonna shit on this movie. It's not that kind of movie. Um, the
What
puppeteering.
do we do here?
Well, yeah, but like it's not that kind of movie. You know, like
hmm
it's. I can see why kids would like it. I can see why kids would find it spooky. I could see why it would be like a weird classic that you grow up with kind of thing.
hmm
The puppeteer work is clearly awesome. The monster designs
And honestly,
are
it
great.
looks pretty much better than I remember, honestly. I think I just sort of like vaguely remembered puppets moving around, but
Mm,
watching it again, I was sort of like, oh no, this is actually really good cinematography in a lot of ways. Obviously, we've come further
yeah,
from it, but
I'm
the visuals are often very
yeah
nice or
yeah.
impactful, at least.
I'm like 80-20 on that. Some of the puppeteer work I think it's just because I'm into this stuff, and so I've watched videos on like
Sure.
how it works. I try to ignore that part of my brain, and yes, it is the environments are amazing. I love the forest with all the creatures that they make,
Mm-hmm.
the weird bug guards and their creepy little bug sounds when they walk around all their legs.
Mm-hmm. They're one of my
Yeah,
favorites.
they're really
Yeah.
good.
Are they? Those are the Gartham, maybe?
Something like
Again, I
that.
wrote down names.
Yeah, something like that. Those guys are cool. The four-armed lizard wizards, they're really dope. I like their design just in
Mm-hmm.
general. Then the weird god creatures at the end, those are kind of cool as well. All that to say, the puppeteering, the design, the set work is fantastic. Um, and I will fully admit I can only fully form this opinion because I messed up and watched the Neverending Story before this, as you already know. And it put in
Uh-huh.
perspective something. I
Mm.
think the Neverending Story works better, and we won't talk about the Neverending Story a lot, but I think it works because there's a real person, and it adds a
Mm-hmm.
groundingness, it adds some legitimacy, and have to add a real person to the Dark Crystal. But it's very noticeable when Jen is very clearly a kid or a little guy in makeup for the wide
Running
shots.
around, yeah,
Yes.
I thought that was
And
really funny too because they advertised this movie so hard as being like the only feature film ever to never have any human actors, and I was like, who's running around in these
right.
costumes? Then because
Also,
that's clearly
yeah,
a
like
person.
that's weird. What do you mean no human actors? Like it's not that the people are making it anyway. And I thought
Hmm.
with the design of Jen and Kira being like human adjacent, like, they don't have scales, they don't have feathers, like they're clearly meant to look fleshy, got regular eyes, and like I think that those two should have just been people, like either kids or just people, and they made all the monsters big to make them look little, and just giving it that extra impact because especially in the beginning when it's not quite clear what the um like capability of the puppet is. I didn't know if Jen's mouth was gonna move when he spoke because there's like internal monologue, but the internal
Hmm.
monologue doesn't even have like that echoey distant sound effect on
Hmm.
top of it. It's just him talking. So I just kept thinking like this would not bother me as much if it was just a dude surrounded by this world of monsters. Like add ear makeup, add weird things to eyes, add the wings to Kira. Maybe they have weird fingers or something. I don't know. But that was like my only real
Oh,
thing I would want changed is that those should have been like people. Because otherwise,
I
it
I hear what you're
feels.
saying about grounding it a little bit, but I kind of disagree because I think the whole point of this was to create a story that was disconnected from humans as much as possible. Still a story that would resonate with humans.
Mhm.
This is like they were trying to write for, I don't know, a spirit or something. They were writing for humans, so the story in some way would relate to the human condition. But I think the idea was to try and not have a human on screen. Like that was kind of like the whole point. And it was a part of the world building. This is such a foreign world. It's got what, three suns,
Mhm.
and nothing you see in it you will recognize because everything is foreign and alien to you. And while I will admit it creates a kind of
Disconnect.
disbelievability, I guess, like there's not really a suspension of disbelief that I think comes into this film, especially when they keep cutting between scenes of a person in costume running in a distance and then they go back to the
Yeah.
puppets. Um it, it's clear to me what I'm watching is a puppet, which is being ultimately moved by human hands,
Mhm.
1 degree away or another. Um, but I still feel like to just, especially the main characters, to just go ahead and put humans in the center of this would kind of mess up what they were trying to do with the film. It'd be to surrender the idea of this faraway world building and everything.
I suppose I hear what you're saying too,
Hmm.
but to make it as far away from humans as possible, I think it's harder to care because there is nothing to attach to. And then it's strange if that is the point to make our main characters look human adjacent if it's supposed to be like I found
I will
what's her
agree
name.
that using human adjacent lookalikes to be the main protagonists, the Gelflings, that was a bad choice, I think. I think they should have looked more alien.
Yes,
Maybe
yes, exactly.
more normal than the other aliens that we're seeing, but
Hmm.
they basically just looked human, and I think
Yeah,
that was a mistake.
there should. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think there was some sort of conversation where maybe they wanted to go super fantastical, and someone pointed out my point of like they need to look kind of human, so they found some sort of middle ground, and it's gross. I don't like it. I don't
Hmm.
like how it look, and because it's the other puppets are so extreme, and they are puppets,
Hmm.
and they're designed to work within that their own anatomy. Like that one weird one-eyed witch lady, her face moves
Hmm.
very believably, her mouth moves very believably. She's a puppet, but she feels like a creature. I don't get that from
Hmm.
Jen and Kira. They feel
Yeah.
uncanny to the max. I don't like
I
it.
also feel like because we get introduced to the Skeksis first and then the Mystics, and then we just see Jen sitting there, you're like,
Yeah,
that's just a kid.
right.
That's just
This
a
weird little
person.
naked monkey is sitting by a creek for some reason. It was bizarre,
Hmm.
but yes, it
Hmm.
was. It also from there he looks like a little wooden puppet because of the way his joints and arms are from afar.
Hmm.
It was just
Hmm.
strange. It was strange. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, you kind
yeah.
of have to accept the fact that it is clearly puppets. And for me, I was like, that's just the tone of the world. In the same way that when you look at an animation, it's clearly just drawings. You're like, that's just the vocabulary through which the story is told. But I will agree that the design for the Gelflings was maybe weaker than it should have been. I think they should have leaned a little bit more into we're doing a non-human story. Let's use non-human characters
Mhm.
and done something a little bit more extreme for them.
Yeah. Or if they wanted everything to be puppets, just make them look more like people, but have them be puppets. Not this weird
Hmm.
half and half thing. Because it's also there
Hmm.
is I with it being maybe more of a kids movie. Again, I know it doesn't matter, but there is I think a narrative thing of it's a foreign world, foreign to us, that's also being like invaded by foreign creatures. There's nothing to attach to here at all.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and for kids it doesn't matter,
Mm,
but like because it's a far beyond fantasy world that also has these the dark crystal creatures that come like they're also foreign because they leave in the end. They're not even a part of this world. They're
mhm.
something else. It's like watching Avatar with the creatures from District 9 invading Avatar, and it's like, but there's no humans in it. There's no history here. We don't know anything about Pandora. We don't know anything about the prawns. Like, who are we rooting for? What is going on? What's the deal? But it gets a pass because it's a kids movie and they're puppets. But they're scary puppets.
No, man. I feel like maybe your abstraction isn't working on the level that it should. This is clearly a story about power and greed, and you should be able to relate to that as a human being who lives in this
Oh,
society.
yeah, no, that, yes. I'm not saying that the narrative beats are completely unrelatable. It's the world is so
Hmm.
unrelatable. I'm just wondering like I went into it, I think, wanting to give it a lot of credit or had weirdly high expectations. I don't know why.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
so I'm mixed. I'm in multiple headspaces of like wanting to watch it as a kid
Hmm.
and wanting to watch it as an adult. Yeah, the narrative beats are pretty straightforward, but it's also a
Hmm.
little confusing in the end because it's some sort of
Yeah.
weird god creature that's split in two, and
Hmm.
the turtle lizard four-armed men are connected to them, and
Hmm.
I don't know. There's some interesting weirdness magic going on.
We should definitely talk about the philosophy of the film because
Yeah.
that's an intriguing conversation. But we haven't even really started yet, so.
Yes, I'm sorry. What are your thoughts? I've been going on here.
um, I don't know that this is something that I'll intentionally put on again, but if someone were to turn it on, I'd absolutely watch it again. It's to me, it's almost like a puzzle. Like I can see the intent behind it, I can see the effort behind it, and I honestly think it's pretty well crafted up until the end. I think their third act is a little bit rushed. But I don't know, there's things about it that feel like it's too much idea and not
Mm,
enough follow through maybe. um And I feel like the indication of the Gelflings basically just being human but not fully being human, and therefore kind of like walking this weird uncanny valley line is kind of a sign of that. I think the fact that there's the romance is pretty low key. I don't really hate that too much. I think that kind of works.
It's kind of
But
basic.
I don't know. The story is just it wants to be bizarre, and then in so many surprising ways it ends up being kind of mundane. Like the fact that there's a fuzzy little sidekick for our female character, Fizgig. I don't know why he's there. I honestly don't know what value he adds to the film. Um, and the thing about the Gelflings being like regenerative when the crystal takes their energy, that should have been mentioned back when we were talking about how the Skeksis are afraid of the Gelflings because of the prophecy, and so they killed all of them. But we didn't mention that we were also harvesting them for lifelong living juice. And especially since we start with the Emperor's death, that would be very relevant to the moment. The idea that they have no more Gelfling essence to give the Emperor, and so he's dying.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like they never really nailed down what they were trying to do with the Chamberlain's character. Like Lord Chamberlain, he challenges the general to a fight for the Emperor's throne. They have this weird trial by sword stone thing where they take swords and hit a stone, which I thought they were going to fight each other to the death. And when you only have 9 remaining members of your species, it actually does make sense to not do a duel to the death. But then banishing the one that loses is also not very smart. Anyway, these guys are not that intelligent. We should admit that. Chamberlain goes out and just kind of wanders around aimlessly for a while, and then happens to run into our main character, Jen.
He was looking for him.
Follows him around. That's true. He was looking for him. And like the idea seemed to be like, I think what they ended up kind of settling on is that the Chamberlain was after Jen to turn him in so that he could get better standing with the Skeksis again in the court.
Yeah.
But he also kind of like helps Jen and Kira a couple of times and just kind of lurks in the background a lot. So I don't know. Maybe he was just a traitor and I was hoping for more, but I felt like that was just one of the things they hadn't quite figured out what they wanted to do with.
I thought he was supposed to be like an intelligent character. It was like, it's a prophecy that was misread. We could have peace. It's all good and fine. I was like, that's interesting. Like, I mean, why did we not even consider that? But then I guess I was an idiot because he had no good intentions at all. And I hated his little sound that he makes. All the, it's the same one over and over and over. It was like, is this Miss Piggy? Because I think it's a Miss Piggy.
I mean, it's probably the same.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it is time to talk about the fluff of the film or whatever, because the Skeksis are obviously entangled with the Mystics, and yet they are opposites. And the whole thing was about them reuniting, and that's what sort of like saves the land or whatever. Which is actually a really interesting idea, especially when you start the film highlighting the difference in values and like actions and community between the two different groups. And is interesting when you're trying to talk about the fact that humans contain those duplicities. Like the humans are greedy and they are careful, they are, thoughtful and build community, and they also tear each other down and kill each other. So there's definitely something there, but I don't know if that really explains why the Skeksis were in charge, I guess. Like, what happened way back 1,000 years ago that split them? Yeah. Like, there was clearly something happened, and you kind of like get this slow build of the story across the movie.
Yeah, the crystal gets broken.
The crystal people,
and that's why
the crystal gets broken. Yeah,
but then I don't know
why did it break? Win. How did it break?
Yeah, that I don't remember.
It could be as simple as just the Skeksis have hunger for power and the Mystics don't.
I was confused because we saw like Jen or someone looked into something and saw one of the Skeksis hitting the crystal. So was that Did they ship it them like on purpose, but then somehow putting it back to like? But that means they both already existed. So I don't know. I've only seen it once. This is a terrible review.
Mhm.
I don't have enough knowledge.
There's probably a whole world building thing they've done almost like post movie because this movie
Yeah.
has a cult following,
Oh
right?
my
So there's
god.
definitely sort of like a history that had been created by the fans and whatever. I don't know. There's also like a sequel, Age of Resistance, I think they call it. And I don't know if it's like a prequel or actual sequel or what. But it's on Netflix, and I've not watched that at all. So that
Oh
probably adds
crap.
quite a bit
Do
and
we need
might
to
clear up
watch
some
it now?
questions. I mean, if we have questions we want answers to, it might give us answers. It might also give us more questions.
All right. We'll see.
Mhm. I don't know. Um, when it comes to like the quest structure and everything, all that seems pretty solid. Jen is the chosen one simply because he's taught by the mystics and he's like the only Gelfling left. He goes and he consults a person who knows about stuff. She tells him about stuff. And then he does his best to complete his task.
No, I object, Your Honor. I stand before you and I object. I clearly because of the puppet work and the one master turtle lizard four-armed man wizard dying. He sounded like Yoda. Probably was Yoda, but it reminded me.
I mean, they worked on Star Wars
Yeah,
too.
yeah. So I see the crossing over of artistic styles, but it reminded me of Star Wars just for a second, and then it kept going, and I was like, wow, this is Star Wars, but so much worse. In that Luke Skywalker is completely pointless and doesn't do shit, but Leia has cooler abilities, a more interesting background, actual drive and motivation, gets more done, and makes a legitimate sacrifice. Because you take Jen out, you could replace him with a passenger pigeon. He does nothing. He knows nothing. He doesn't even know it's the dark crystal somehow until Kira points it out. So, no. It's like, yes, it's a classic hero structure in that the boy hero is kind of useless because he goes to what's her name? The one-eyed witch lady, Olga or Olga something.
Agra, I
Agra
think.
gets captured, leads the bugs to her, screws up her life, keeps running, falls in the swamp, gets saved by Kira, goes to the village, gets saved by Kira, and then Kira realizes where they're supposed to, like, he's just wandering from place to place. He has no drive, he has no motivation, he has no powers, he has no ability. The only reason he doesn't, it seems, work with Chamberlain or whatever his name is because of Kira. Because she's like, no, don't do it, Jen, no. And then yeah, he gets out from underneath the rubble. Good for him. He does cardio. I don't know. Kira summons all the animals with her princess powers, has an uprising, grabs the crystal, and somehow, with her wing ability, can't fly up to the top of it, so she has to throw it to
I think
Jen.
it's more of a glider situation.
I think it's more of a glider situation because they probably didn't have the effects worthy of making it look like she can fly. If you're gonna do that, don't give her wings. So she throws the crystal to Jen. He shoves it in the crystal. Everything's great, and the weird god men are like, "Your sacrifices." He didn't sacrifice anything. Come on.
That's true. No, actually, I agree with that. I feel like one of my, I guess, halfway through notes, I was like, Kira seems much more useful than Jen.
She speaks multiple languages. She has an understanding of magic and knowledge. She has a connection to these communities. Like, she has a reason to go save people. She summons the weird men on stilts. She does everything.
And you can kind of argue that she is kind of like the hero at the end, too, where she gives her life for it. Now, I think, if I remember correctly, Jen does make the final decision to unite the crystal rather than do anything else. But
what else could he do? He was up
all
on
he
the
does.
crystal.
Well, I think the idea was that he gives the crystal, or Kira dies. Yeah.
I think she was already stabbed before she was stabbed before he puts the crystal in the top of the crystal.
they make it look like it's a forced decision for a second, where he
Oh,
has
sure.
to save the world or the girl.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, like, there has to be something culturally or narratively or something that makes this trope happen, because it's everywhere.
It's
Where
misogyny.
and it's, well, sure, misogyny could be a part of it, absolutely is a part of it, but like, the fact that this trope shows up so specifically in so many different stories is wild.
Mm-hmm.
I think Luke Skywalker is one of the better versions of this, where they are two genuinely different people that are given two different circumstances and then grow into the same like conflict, but still are ultimately handling things differently. I think Luke Skywalker, he can be included in the trope, but he kind of gets a pass because they do genuinely different things with Leia and Luke. With I think the Tron movie that came out falls into this. The Lego movie falls into this category. There's a whole bunch of stories where this character who knows nothing is suddenly conscripted into a quest or a journey or a war they didn't know was previously happening. Their guide into that world ends up being a reluctant girl who will be their love interest.
Who's
And that
way more
girl
qualified.
has been training in this world for forever.
Ooh.
Arguably, Avatar like kind of fits in this.
Hardcore. When you know one that also does that hurts a little bit more than the others? How to Train Your Dragon.
Little bit. I would argue it's different though, because he's doing something different than Astrid
The journey
is.
changes very quickly as he explores a whole new world of knowledge. However, he still has a connection to his own community through someone who is objectively way more overqualified in other ways. Like there are things they have to write in situations like that. You have to write the boy to be stupid and useless sometimes in order for it to work. But that's a loose example of that.
If you look sideways, I think we can include it. I think it's a little forced because he is on his own. He is discovering something that no one else has discovered before. It's not like he suddenly stumbled into a tribe of Vikings who knew that dragons were friendly, and there was a woman who taught him all the tricks about how to befriend a dragon, but he was the only one that could, for some reason, take down the big bad guy. You know, like,
fair enough. I will retract that. There is an added layer to it, though, that's a little, I don't know if it's ever acknowledged, because Hiccup is considered the first dragon rider, which is not.
But his mom is definitely the
first
dragon rider.
Rider. Yeah, but I will track that. That's right. I wasn't thinking about that completely. I agree though. I'm aware of this, and I don't love it.
I feel like it's in the same vein as the white savior trope, where like there's this idea that the newbie who shows up in the scene has something inherently different about them that allows the victory, conditions to suddenly be met. Which I will admit, I am kind of intrigued by stories where, the group that's in the war or whatever has been going at it for a really, really long time. They're not making any progress. They're not really losing per se, but they're not really gaining ground either. And through opening up to a new perspective, they start making changes. I like that. But to hang all your hopes on a chosen one, and the chosen one has no idea what's going on in the world, and they have to be completely trained specifically by a female love interest who really should be the one who's taking over everything. Like, let's tell that story, but then at the end be like, psych, she was actually the chosen one the whole time. We were just wasting our time on this loser. Like
ooh, you could argue Harry Potter's kind of this, except he's got some chosen one stuff about him, but you take Hermione out of that equation, and it doesn't happen. He does.
I think that happens with a lot of them, though, because like most of the girl's job is just keeping the hero alive.
You take the girl out of the equation in all these movies, absolutely. It's just Harry does have more to him than Lego Movie Guy and Jen and Tron, and like it's still there essentially. And I think honestly what this could be, if you want to get real blunt, real gross, is the girls don't have value unless they are smart and ass kickers and can speak multiple languages and know everything and are a part of the community and hot. But the guy has value because he is there and because the universe says he's the chosen one. That's all he's got to do.
Well, in my mind, this is a unfortunate mix of two, I guess, tropes or stereotypes, maybe, is the idea. Because I think what you're saying is true as well. But another way to kind of look at it is that it's really common in fantasy, especially, to drop an everyman character into the situation, and the everyman doesn't know what's going on because the audience doesn't know what's going on. So you have to use your main character to sort of like hold your audience's hand through the story, and they're meant to relate to the main character because main character audience connection. You're supposed to feel like you're going through the story with them, right? So to a degree, the everyman character really fits in a fantasy. But again, because statistics and who tends to write these stories, or at least for a long time, who gets published in these stories, tends to be male authors. It's often, they assume everyone's going to relate to a typically white male protagonist. And then to balance out the fact that our everyman character the audience is supposed to relate to doesn't know anything, you have to have a helping character. And since that character is going to be involved in everything, why not also make them the love interest? And because heteronormativity, that's going to be usually a woman, typically a white woman, but not always. So that one gets a little bit of variation.
Sometimes they're blue. It just depends. It's funny you said that,
but especially because it's because of the exotic thing, like
I know.
Tends to.
But it's funny you said that, because I was thinking another example is Dances with Wolves, in which case it is a white woman within a community of indigenous people.
That's crazy.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Look,
anyway,
deep conversations here coming from the Dark Crystal. Deep conversations. Sorry, Jim. You just wanted to make something cool and fun and artistic, and I totally see that. I do.
Yeah.
But
I think that was it. I think that was the idea. It was just about creating the world more than it was the story. I think. This movie.
I would say in the kindest and also the bluntest, most aggressive way possible. Yeah, absolutely. Because the world shines, the story does not.
There were several times watching the film where I was like, this must have been inspiration for several people's creations of alien worlds, because it's striking, it's beautiful, it looks different in Alien. You can still kind of tell what the environment's supposed to mimic on Earth, It's really cool how much effort went into all of those environments, and thought into like the sort of false ecosystems that they created and stuff like that. There's a lot of artistry in this film.
Indeed. Yeah. They almost go too hard with the parallels, though, to the point where I started getting confused. Like, the opening is fine, the dialogue is there, it's the same thing, and these things are connected, yada yada yada. But then as I was thinking and trying to get into the art of it all, I realized that our opening shot of Jen is him naked by a river for seemingly no reason. Yep. But then one of the first things that Chamberlain has happened to him is he is banished and stripped of all his clothes. I was like, parallels for our good and bad guy as we go through this journey. But then I was like, no, it can't be, because they're not connected. They're different. Like, he's not connected to the weird vulture man, because the vulture man is connected to the weird lizard people. So I wonder, should he have been
I can help.
Okay, go on.
Jen is supposed to bring balance and restore the world to a living world. So the first time we see him is in a green garden, because that's what he's going to do. He's going to make the whole world prosper and green again. The reason it's such a big deal that our Chamberlain guy gets like stripped and banished is because they're materialistic. It's super important that the Skeksis have all these jewels and clothes, and their clothes are clearly demonstrative of like what role they play in their society, because the Skeksis are supposed to represent all that sort of like, I guess, darker side of human existence, which usually people tend to put materialism into that category. Not that having things or wanting things is bad, just that putting a priority on those things can be bad. And because he's shamed by society, they remove the things of value from him. So like, it's interesting that for the Skeksis, being stripped of clothes would be shameful, whereas with Jen, it's almost like that's the natural state of things. But I think that actually exists in the real world too. Like there are, moments where it is natural to be without any sort of guard, and then there are moments where, like, if you didn't have anything between you and the person you're looking at, it's actually really bad and really embarrassing. But yeah, no, it is interesting that you bring that up, because that would be a really strong beginning to a redemption arc for our Chamberlain, but it would totally mess up the idea of the Skeksis being inherently evil if there was a redemption arc. Maybe that's why they had such trouble with the character.
I couldn't help but also wonder about the internal rules or dynamics, because I get that it's not that kind of movie, but I was thinking, if the Skeksis are damaging this world or a threat to this world, and the four-armed lizard mystics know that and can do something about that, why don't they?
I think it's meant to be a critique on the mystics. I think they're supposed to say people who value good things but do nothing and just wait for someone else to do something are also to blame.
I think that commentary is all good and fine, but it messes with this duality of the god creatures. They have evil that is active and powerful and has motivation, but their good side is feckless and useless. It was making me think of the modern political sphere, but like it's as far as the good and bad of a person, an individual, or a species, that's weird and troubling in its own way. Because when we get the god tree men things at the end, they seem inherently good, which would imply that the good side would be stronger than the bad. But it's not. Or you'd think if you had good and bad and you split it and they came back together, they'd be these weird Vulcan-like beings. But they're not. So I would say, Mr. Henson, you got like 2.5 to 3.25 different kinds of commentary going on here, and they're not all real. They're not mixing well together. Some of them are conflicting with the others. Because the other thing, completely unrelated, to think that those mystics walked to the Dark Crystal at roughly 1.5 miles an hour and got there on time, that implies this journey ain't that long. But Jen is running all over the place and had to take some weird giraffe stilt men to get there. So, yeah, that's just me being petty.
No, I agree. One of the weakest, I guess, plot points of the film is the fact that the mystics just walk there. And like, I do kind of like it in terms of like character building, where like the mystics know what needs to happen, and so they start at the right time and just slowly cross the way that they need to get to where they need to be at the right time. But it confuses the idea of Jen having to make the arduous journey because no one else could do it. Only Jen could do it, except for the mystics are also doing it, and they're doing it peacefully across the span of like a month or whatever.
Why couldn't he just go with them? They get there on time.
Yeah. I don't know, because like it really feels like he should have been sent to go get the crystal and then come back and walk with us.
Yeah. The other thing about that, I was thinking, if you wanted to be, if I wanted to argue the opposite side, you could be like, well, no, Jen is important, because he's the only one who can realize which crystal shard is the right one. It's like, oh, you got me. Checkmate. But, I don't think it would put me or anyone out to carry all three and test them one after the other. Like, if you wanted to do something like that, with your magnificent set designing prowess, give us a cave filled with crystals. They're everywhere. It's difficult, like, it's still not going to change the fact that Kira is way more qualified and should be the one doing it. But if you want to give him that extra edge, that he has the ability to detect the dark crystal that no one else does, then give us a situation in which it's not just 3 crystals. I could carry all 3 and just test one after the other. Like, put him in a room that's like, the end of Indiana Jones 3. And he can sense them. They're everywhere. It's like a glass shop, something. just to add a little more for Jen's journey and his significance with his own mystical powers. She has the power to talk to animals. He has the powers to feel the crystal. But like, yeah. Anyway, that's just that point.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the plot flubs and weaknesses can kind of be forgiven in the sense of like that wasn't clearly their intention. This film's more about the, you know, sort of world building than it is the story. And like I can give movies like that a pass more often than not. Like, hey, your intent was not necessarily narrative perfection. Your intent was enough narrative so that we could really explore the world that I wanted to create. And there are lots of stories that are genuinely okay like that, in my opinion. They're never going to be greatest story ever, but that's not the point of them anyway. There's some things like, you know, Jen being more or less kind of pointless is like, okay, whatever. Kira's random collection of abilities that make her incredibly proficient. Okay, sure, whatever. The Mystics and the Skeksis being like the same, being split. Interesting, really intriguing. Leads to some logical issues, but like, hey, that's intriguing. I'm going for it. Where I really start to feel like the film just gets confusing and kind of like the plot is no longer entertaining. It's not just that it's dropping the ball on some details. It kind of feels like it's become a mess. Is in the third act where Kira and Jen are separated, and what they are doing has little to no connection with each other. We don't really know what Jen's like motivation is for a good chunk of this time.
Yeah, exactly.
We're watching the Skeksis thing play out, and it doesn't really matter how the Skeksis thing plays out because we don't care about the Chamberlain guy. The Mystics, we get several shots of the Mystics at this point crossing the world, and like we already know that's where they're going. And the fact that we don't like see them gaining distance or anything just kind of feels like we're wasting our time here. So like, and like I mentioned before, randomly we learn that Gelfling essence prolongs Skeksis' life. So like that feels like a detail that we should have known before. Not necessarily that it was, you know, not necessarily the Gelflings knew that before. Maybe Jen and Kira discover it and they're like horrified. That's fair. I like that. But the fact that we get the perspective of the Skeksis first in this film, and we don't know that the Gelfling essence is important to the prolonging lives, even though we're in a death scene with the Skeksis ruler, and the physician is right there, whatever. And then, like, the combining is essential to what they're doing, so I don't really have any critique on that. By uniting forces of, we'll say, evil and or agency and good and or passivity, we kind of create the ultimate being, which restores balance and then disappears because we can't have good rulers here on the planet. And then everything is just fine. Like, everything is instantly fine. Except for the fact that, like, we're basically on a new planet and all we got's Adam and Eve. And
yeah, and weird little frog people and a lot of mountain sea enemies and stilt giraffe things. We don't really meet a whole lot of other like civilization.
No, if the Mystics are gone and the Skeksis are gone, the only people left to, I guess, make decisions for the world, not necessarily there'd be a kingdom, but like the only race is really left would be the Podlanes, which, like, good for them because they seem like they do fine without, you know, rulers. And then the two remaining Gelflings.
Who are in love because they know each other.
They're the two remaining Gelflings. So, like, I don't know if the end is really all that satisfying.
I was gonna say, I feel very unsatisfied, and I think it does end up coming back again to, for one, if you want to argue that it's not a huge deal, that this is an alien fantasy world with alien fantasy creatures invading this alien fantasy world, you need to allow us to spend time with those alien fantasy creatures in order for us to care in the end. Because, like, it ends, and it's green again, and I'm like, okay, cool, I like plants. But, like, is that all that's changed? Is that there are now plants? Because if that's it, cool, I guess. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, even the visit to the ruined Gelfling kingdom, where we kind of like learn what we need to do, which I felt like we already knew what we were supposed to do, but anyway, we relearned what we need to do from the Gelfling ruins. Um, I think the idea is that like that Jen and Kara are supposed to be able to sort of like restart that, but I don't know if we really want to look into how that gets done.
Yeah.
Like, if we're gonna magically reunite two species that are actually one species, maybe the crystal could just be like, and also here are some more Gelfling. Or at the very least, we could have like a bit of a conversation about like how Gelflings aren't gonna come back and we're sorry about that, but you know, at least the world is green. But it just like there's this whole bit about the Gelflings being essentially genocided, and then there's no resolution to that problem.
Right.
There's no even addressing
Also,
that
there's
issue
a
at the end.
prophecy that a Gelfling kills them, but that's not what happens.
Yeah.
Like, even if you want to argue that Gelfling's actions lead to them no longer existing, that's still due to the actions of the Mystics. Like, this is a larger equation.
Yeah.
Points for art.
The
and
only
design,
thing
no
that
part,
made
points for story.
the only thing that made Jen special, other than the fact that he could, for some reason, tell which crystal was right, was the fact that he could read the writings on the ruins because he was a Gelfling taught by mystics.
Right. Cool.
We could just, if we made Kira Jen, the only thing we miss out on is the fact that the podlings are actually a really culturally healthy group.
Say the Mystics and them live together.
Yeah,
I mean,
that would be
why
fine.
not? That's fine.
The Mystics have saved a group of podlings from slavery from the Skeksis. More parallels between the two groups.
Exactly.
And
See, we could do better.
to be fair, we also had all this already done for us, and we're
That's
just
true.
making changes and improvements.
Very
but
true. It's one of those
yeah,
ones.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those ones though where I come to the end and I'm like, I don't want to give it a whale, but it's like it's not actually that bad because it is a kids movie, so I can't shit on it. Like truly.
That's fair.
So like it's a C plus. It gets a whale, but I mean I don't.
It holds
like
up better than some other like kids movies, and it's like it clearly there was love and passion that went into it too, and to me that makes a big difference rather than watching some heartless computer animated let's just throw a plot together and call it a movie.
Like the Barbie movies.
Yeah, no. No. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Their animation wasn't great. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. I guess it's a puppet whale.
Puppet whale?
It's a puppet whale.
Okay.
It's pretty much a whale, but I don't know if I'll ever really intentionally watch it again.
It is definitely the shallowest whale that I'm gonna give. Because I don't foresee ever watching this
I'm not a part
again.
of the cult following.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that it was created, and I do appreciate a lot of the art that came with it, but at the end of the day, do I like it that much?
I don't
Probably
get
not.
the attachment to a lot of these things. Like, I understand why people love the Muppets. I don't understand why people would love this. I don't understand why people would love the one with David Bowie. I don't understand the connection to these weird, horrifying puppet monster movies. It's just, it's before my time.
It's for the people. Well, and I don't mean to insult anybody by saying this, but in my mind, the people who cult follow these bizarre movies are the people who would really, really enjoy a good fantasy book, but have never taken the time to read one.
Oh.
So they don't know that they're missing out on intricate plots and crazy fantasy worlds. You know, like you can have both.
Yeah. I'm trying to like reflect on myself too, because it's not that I can't connect to puppet creatures. I grew up with Zaboomafoo and Bear in the Big Blue House, and you know, the Between the Lions and Sesame Street. Like I love me a good puppet, but I don't. These puppets are weird.
I like the puppets. I don't like the story. I feel like it doesn't work.
I like the artistry of the puppets. I don't feel like I could be friends with any of them.
Mm, we disagree on that.
Fair enough. And on that note, we're going to bring this episode to an end.
Cut.